Hi folks, Rodney Creator from Programmers Institute here. We left off with this little application looking like this, where we could put a number in here, and press to multiply, and it would give us a result, which in this case is a double result. Now right now we can only enter in integers in here. I'll show you in a little bit how we can change that and allow ourselves to enter in a decimal point and put in a fractional portion on the end. But for now, let's go ahead and move this text view box over to the center so that it's centered with everything else. And so we're going to go ahead and go right about, let's kind of group these things together so that they make a little bit of sense. We'll put it right here under the number text. Okay, so this text view is going to be a little different than how we centered our edit text. Okay, so this is answer text. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to set the width. Okay, and we'll set the width at 150. And this. And like that. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set its gravity to center horizontal. We'll use a gravity object and we'll pick the center horizontal like this. Okay, now we'll go ahead and run this so you can see what it looks like. And okay, and it'll pop up here in a minute and it'll refresh itself. Alright, as we're watching this, the next thing, after we see how this gets centered, I'm going to show you. Okay, here we go. Let's see how it's centered now. And we can go ahead and type in our numbers and press multiply and the answer gets centered. Okay, we're going to do some more formatting here in a little bit to make sure that this looks a lot better. Before that though, let's go ahead and put in 3 more buttons, and we're going to start with just one button so I can show you how this works. We're going to put in a button for a division, and we're going to put it right beside here. So we're going to shrink up the size of this, and we're going to put a division button right beside this one so we can do either multiplication or division, and they're going to be side by side. Notice right now we've got a vertical layout, so anything we're putting into our layout 1 is going to be placed vertically. So if we added another new thing, it would fall right here. Well, what we want to do is we want to slip a horizontal layout right here. Right now there's just a button there. So what we're going to do is right in this zone, we're going to put a horizontal layout, and in that horizontal layout then we'll put the buttons in there and have them all center themselves to the center of this horizontal layout. You can kind of think of it like this. And excuse my drawing, I don't have a pen on me, I'm using a mouse to draw this, but say this was our Android application right here. And I'll go ahead and I'll make that rectangle. Okay, this is our Android app. Now we're putting things in one after another vertically. And we put a vertical layout right here. This is our vertical layout. Alright, and things are falling in place one after another like this. Okay, now what we're going to do is in the button area, we're going to create a horizontal layout and place it right here like this. So we'll put a horizontal layout in a vertical layout, and then we'll place our buttons inside of the horizontal layout, which will cause them to drop in place side by side like this. Okay, so as we mentioned, the individual buttons, the first button that we mention in our code will be to the left, the second button will be next, the next, and so on and so on. Alright, so we're going to mention it in our code. I'm going to move this over. As we mention our buttons in our code, as we type in and say, hey, I want a button, I want a button, I want a button, I want a button, drop the button in, drop the button in, drop the button in, drop the button in into this horizontal layout. Each time I drop a button in, this way it will drop the buttons in across to the right. Alright, so that's what we're after. That's our goal. We want to put a horizontal layout inside of a vertical layout. Alright, that'll help us organize everything. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this. So, the next step in this process, let's go ahead and let's declare that there shall be a horizontal layout. So up here where we've declared our first layout, now notice that each one of these, they're not really horizontals or verticals until you actually tell them to lay things out. When you say set orientation right here, vertical, or we're going to tell this next one to set its horizontal or set its orientation to horizontal. So we're going to make a generic linear layout like this. We'll call it button layout. Alright, so there shall be, this is saying, we're declaring there shall be a linear layout called button layout. Now, moving down here, the next step we're going to do is just like we did here with this layout one. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to slip it in between so it makes sense when you read the code. We're going to say that button layout is we're actually going to create it now. When the Android fires up and the onCreate function starts up, it's going to actually create this linear layout in memory. So it's going to be a regular linear layout. Okay, just like the other one. We're going to attach it to this context. Oops, I forgot my little parentheses. There you go. Oh, and we've got to make sure that we slip in the new keyword here. We're making a new linear layout. Alright, so now we've declared our layout. We've created it in memory. Alright, that's the next step. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start making a we're probably going to set its orientation to be the best thing to do just to keep in a logical sense. So we'll come down to our other layout that we've got right here, and we'll modify our button layout. Just like this. Oops. Okay, button layout, and we'll set the orientation. And this time we'll set our, and again, this is, we got to think in terms of the fact that it's a linear layout. So we're gonna use a linear layout constant variable that's been created. This one's going to be the horizontal. Alright, so this turns it into a horizontal layout like this. And then we're going to do the same thing with centering the gravity so everything falls in to the center. We'll use a gravity object. And we will have it center, oops, capital, center horizontal. Like that. You guys probably noticed that there's capitals on some of these things. And that's because they're constants. These constants are pre-set up inside the gravity class. It has this constant. It's a variable, but they use all caps to signify that it's a constant, that value for that constant cannot be changed. So, when you use center horizontal, its value will always be for center horizontal. Okay. So now we've got our button layouts in there, and we're probably, the next step that we're going to want to do is probably make the buttons. That might be a good, well, yeah, no, I take that back. Let's go ahead and let's put this layout in place of where this calc button would go. Okay, so we're going to, like I showed you before, we're going to draw right here. We're going to, for the moment, remove the button out of there, and we're going to put the horizontal layout in there instead. Alright, so right here where we've got the button, instead of putting the button in, we're going to put our button layout. Like that. Alright. Now, it won't show up here. We'll see kind of a blank space in there. There'll be nothing if I were to run it right now. And you guys can try it. And you can go ahead and run it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this button to right above here. This probably is the best sense right here. I'm going to say, okay, button layout. I'm going to add the button to the button layout. Okay, so add view. There, like that. Okay, and so what we've done here is we've added the button. We've told the button layout that it's going to be a horizontal layout, and then we've added the button to the button layout, and then it added the button layout to the vertical layout. Okay, and when we run this, you'll see it should look exactly the same way now. So we'll go ahead and we'll run. Say yes. Bring it up. Okay, bring it up. We're also probably going to want to resize this, and I'll do that as soon as that gets pulled up here. But we'll resize it to, right now it's at 100, the button size is about 150. We'll resize that button size to 50. And see, it looks exactly the same, but behind the scenes there is an actual horizontal layout here. So let's go ahead and we'll modify that button size. Let's make it about 50. Okay, so I'm going to save. Alright, now again, if I go ahead and run it and pull it up for you, and we'll see in a minute that you'll see it shrink down to 50. And okay, the next thing that we're going to do, yeah, there it is. Notice though we got a squashed up text, so let's just put it. Let's change this from press to multiply. Let's just put an X in there, like that. Okay, so an X for multiply will show up in here instead. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll save that and run it, and I'll show you that it does pull up an X right in there. Alright, now that we have those set, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a button for our division. Okay, there's your X right there for multiply. Alright, so right now this says calc button. Well, I don't want it to say calc button, so I'm going to show you a neat trick on how to change all the calc button names to a different name. I would like this to be multiply button. Okay, so we're going to call it multiply button instead. Now notice we get our little errors all the way down the line. Now you can go down through there and change all the different calc button, calc button, calc. You could change all those by hand if you wanted to. But I'm going to show you another way. If you were to go, and you got to be careful with this. You don't want to change the wrong thing. So be very aware of what you're doing. We're going to go edit. Okay, we're going to go find and replace. We're going to find calc button. And we're going to replace. So find and replace. We're going to find calc button, and then we're going to replace it with the new name multiply button. There. Now we're going to replace it. Now this is where you got to be careful. You should, if you want to be careful, you just go find it. See how it finds it right there, and then you can say replace, and then you go find, replace, find, replace. Now if you're sure, only if you're sure that it's not going to change something wrong, then you can say replace all, and it'll do it automatically, and I'll show you. Replace all. So boom, there it goes. Alright, and I'll scroll up and notice it replaced every one of them down the line. But be very careful with replace all, because you can change things ways that you don't want them changed. So I'm going to save that. So now all those buttons that we had, this button here is now called the multiply button, and that makes more sense than calculate button. because now what we're going to do is we're going to create another button called the divide button. Alright, so I'm going to put it right under here. Okay. Like that. Alright, and then we're going to scroll down. And let's go ahead and create that in memory. And we'll put it right under here. Okay, equals new button, and attach it to this context like that. Okay, so now we've got our new divide button. We've created it in memory, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and come down here and set its text. So let's go ahead and set its text. And we'll set it to the slash symbol. That's pretty common for divide. Oops, wrong way. There, divide. And up to the center. There we go. Okay, so now we've got it. The text will show up divide. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to place it then into the button layout. Now, if you put it here above, it'll fall to the left. If you put it afterwards, right here, underneath the multiply button, it'll fall to the right. Because if you put it afterwards, then this one gets put in, then the next one gets put in. Alright, so we'll go ahead and make a little space there. And we will add to the button layout. Oops, I mistyped button. Alright. We will add the divide button. Just like that. Alright, so that takes care of adding it to the layouts. The last thing that we're going to do here is, well, it's not quite the last thing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to, just like the multiply button here, I'm going to do a little cheater here. I'm going to copy this and paste and change this to divide. There. Now we've got our divide button set to be 50 by 50. Okay, so it's going to be a square like this one is. So it'll be 50 by 50. Alright, and then the very last thing is we need to be able to talk to that divide button. In other words, when somebody clicks on the divide button, it has to be able to respond and do something and change this value appropriately. So we had to add a listener to the divide button. So we're going to, again, do the same thing. We can just copy this, okay, and change it to divide. So we're going to add a listener to the divide button, and we'll call that listener, that custom listener, we'll call it, okay, divide clicked. Just like that. Now notice we have a red squiggly line. That's because we have not created that listener yet. So we're going to come down and we're going to simply copy this whole listener right here, right down to the semicolon, the colon after the semicolon, okay, and we'll make space right here and paste it in. And I'll move this back a little bit like that, and we'll rename this to divide clicked. And so now you'll notice the red squiggly line up here has disappeared. We have a listener now. We've created a listener for the divide button. So when somebody clicks on it, it's going to come down here and do this stuff. Now, our multiplication, we have to still pull out a string. Just as for division, we have to do the same thing. Pull out the strings, go ahead and turn them into numbers, but the biggest difference is right here. We're going to actually divide the first number by the second number. Alright, and so we just changed one thing right there. But we've got a problem. If you divide by 0, the second number is 0, you're going to get an error. So we need to slip in this code and modify it slightly and say, if that second number if that second number is not equal to 0, Okay, so notice I'm using an exclamation mark, equal sign. If that second number is not equal to 0, then go ahead and I'm going to group all three of these steps together and do these 3 steps. I'll tab these in to make sense there. So if the second number is not equal to 0, then go ahead and divide and then put the results in. Otherwise, don't do anything. So if you divide it by 0, now we could always put a little note in there and say, hey, to the user, hey, you can't divide by 0. But for now, we'll have it do nothing. If it is 0, it just won't do this. It'll go back and it'll do nothing. As long as it's not 0, then it will go ahead and it'll divide the 2 numbers and it'll put the answer right here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to run it, and I'll show you how it looks and works now. And it'll take a second for us. And for this video, okay, there. See, now you've got the multiply and the divide, and I'll put 2 numbers in here. Let's see, let's go 10. And then on the second number, we'll go 5, and we'll do our test. If we multiply them, we get 50, and that's correct. If we divide, and we'll just leave them be, and we'll go ahead and click the divide button, and you get 2. 10 divided by 5 equals 2. So it does work. And notice how the 2 buttons are laid out in the horizontal. So what I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop this video because it's getting a little long. In the next video, I'm going to go ahead and show you, we're going to quickly copy and paste some 2 extra buttons in here for addition and subtraction. Now my question to you is, before the next video, can you do this? Can you go ahead and put in a addition and subtraction button in there and modify the code so that it works? And then go to my next video and see if your results for the code are the same results as mine. So anyway, I'll move on with, in the next video, we'll go ahead and we'll put that add subtract button in there. We'll format this a little bigger. We'll add some more formatting. We'll put a title. I'll show you a number of other things to make this whole application look a little bit better. Alright, so anyway, there you go. I hope that this helps all of you. I hope you're enjoying it. And we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day.